So a little note about the transmission this morning. There's lots of sites on the internet on the author of the 59 aphorisms, Lho Nuden Dorje, and he was a very famous teacher. He was originally born into a Nyingma family and practiced the Nyingma traditions and so on. But he discovered a root text of this, of Atisha, in a fellow practitioner's room, and decided to go on a mission. He was so entranced by this practice that he went on and found a teacher of this, who he asked to teach him, and after a number of years, the teacher said, "Okay, I'll take you on." And 12 years he spent with him until he really perfected this and became a greatly awakened teacher. So this teaching of mind training, especially this 8-point mind training, is so profound and has such a history to it. It went into every school and practice in Tibet. So don't always think of it as a Gelugpa or a Kadampa tradition. It's in every school. So, Michael, would you like to lead us in the Refuge Bodhicitta Vajrasattva Mangala offering and Guru Yoga?
Yaya namo namke sanchana Guri Niru Lama Janjuva Jimla Kunju Lama Lakapji Guru Susu Yiram Lakapji Marshu Kunzo Kamru Lakapji Kami So Sangye Lakapji Shiva Chandra Damshu Lakapji Shloki Shinshu Gende Lakapji Trile Nanda Chokyo Lakapji. Now into the attainment of unsurpassed awakening, I understand the beings equal space, refuge of the Guru, source of all blessings. We go for refuge to the deities, bestower of supreme city. We go for refuge to the kings, dispeller of obstacles. We go for refuge to the Buddha, the first among humans. We go for refuge to Sublime, Dharma, peaceful, free from attachment. We go for refuge to Sangha, the supreme field of purification. We go for refuge to Dharma, the masters of activities. From now until attainment of unsurpassed awakening, I and other sentient beings equal space. Go for refuge to the Guru, source of all blessings. We go for refuge to deities, bestower of supreme city. We go for refuge to the kings, dispeller all obstacles. We go for refuge to Buddha, the first among humans. We go for refuge to Sublime, Dharma, peaceful, free from attachment. We go for refuge to Sangha, the supreme field of liberation. We go for refuge to Dharma's masters of activity. Yayam Korvai Samche Dunna Langachim Deva Chola Nampani Laga Vimla Tanyo Nyambe Senshodi Jancho Nimpo Toshi Lagiti Lagi Rodu Samche Kundashi Sangye Gopam Cheche Topaja Doshi Usta Dorje Ninkolam Lame Chodi Rabbe Sambargi. May all sentient beings of sorrow be free from suffering, joyful and truly abide in supreme happiness. I generate the supreme mind impartial towards all in order to attain the heart of awakening. In order to fully benefit the being's 6 ranks, I must attain a stage of Buddha in this very lifetime. Therefore, I will be very diligent in this unsurpassed teaching. The path of luminous will be clear about your essence. May all sentient beings of samsara be free from suffering, be joyful and truly abide in supreme happiness. I generate the supreme mind impartial towards all in order to attain the heart of awakening. In order to fully benefit the being's 6 realms, I must attain a stage of Buddha in this very lifetime. Therefore, I will be diligent in this unsurpassed teaching. The path of this will be clear about your essence. And spontaneously arising
for the welfare of self and all sentient beings' liberation as Vajrasattva.
Yoya Om Benja Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Benja Sattva Tvenopa Tishta Drito Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayasya Sarva Karma Sucha Me Tiksam Shriyam Kurumam Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vendra Mame Mucha Vendri Bhava Maha Samaya Sato Vendra Satta Samaya Manupalaya Vendra Satta Tvenopa Drishta Drito Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Sucha Me Titam Shriyam Kurumam Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vendra Mame Musha Vendri Bhava Maha Samaya Sato Vendra Satta Samaya Manupalaya Vendra Satta Tvenopa Drishta Drito Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayasya Sarva Karma Sucha Me Tisam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vendra Mame Mucha Vendra Bhava Maha Samaya Sato Om Vendra Satta Om Vendra Satta
Yayam Sashi Bochu Chuchi Meto Tram Riva Vishini Dayan Badi Sange Zinglami De Puvayi Drokul Anda Jinju Shubhasho Om Guru Deva Dagini Ratna Mangala Pratisha Swaha. These prophets in the scented water, going to flowers and ornaments of the moon, for continents and sun and moon, by offering visuals in the field, and all my good beings take birth in pure Buddhahood. Om Guru Deva Dahini Dharma Mangala Pratisha Swaha. Yom Ahum Ram Gadam Zinkam Su Ranganga Me Kodranda Ramzel Sawai Lamala Nagi Dungwe Solvande Jalu Rupa Jinjilo Om Ahum What a feeling was on the rich pure awareness Palace unceasing in radiance, was by which energy to recruit, to whom I supplicate with devoted mind, bless me to accomplish the rainbow body. Om Ahum, Buddha fear one's own retreating pure awareness, in the palace unceasing in radiance, is one's own vibrant energy to recruit, to whom I supplicate with devoted mind, bless me to accomplish the rainbow body.
So there is this extraordinary dedication aspiration at the end of the Preliminary Liberating Instructions of the Drikung Gongpo Yangzab, Preliminary Liberating Instructions. And I've been asked a number of times, quite a few times actually, to explain all kinds of parts of it. And I have a little bit, but I felt it was time to write a commentary for my own exploration of it and for those of others. And since Antoine Pichet has asked me to teach this so often, I'd like to plumb its depths and give it as an offering for many beings. It's an extraordinary text treasure. So the text begins, this commentary that I've written begins with the root text, that is just the dedication aspiration on page 2 and page 3. And we'll go through the entire thing. Let's do approximately 15 pages per class, and we'll see how that goes more or less. So the first thing, of course, is what is the meaning of a dedication aspiration? Sometimes we use words. We use words very lightly. We just use words, but we don't know where they come from. We don't know how each of us understand them. And often they have very beautiful, extraordinary meanings. So in Tibetan we have go and tude, which really mean to transfer over, making a commitment to transfer over, to distribute. Dedication means to share and to give to others. So we have in our Western society, we have many dedications. A politician or a CEO or somebody goes and opens up and makes a dedication to a hospital, a new building, an institution, so on. But I like to think of this as way more than that, is contemplate how often in a day one makes a dedication to do something, either long-term, short-term. For instance, Crystal Mountain has been rezoning and rethinking and contemplating what to do with a 50-acre forest lot as part of, and how to integrate that into a retreat center. And that's a dedication, right? So contemplate how many dedications one actually has that one doesn't even know was engaged in. And that's what I'd like you to really contemplate for this class, and probably 20 other things, is take a pause and just go, what am I dedicated to doing? Maybe dedicated to support family, dedicated to build a house, dedicated to get the garden in. Can you think about dedicated to do the dishes tonight? Dedicated to clean the house this week? Dedicated to get on a plane? Dedicated to finish the to-do list of 100 items? Dedicated to make that call? Dedicated to show kindness? Dedicated for a supper party? Dedication, 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 which is a transfer over to other people of something that you have a wish to do. The question really is not that it's not that we don't do it all the time, we just don't know we're doing it. Is what quality do we bring to it? So as I put in here, what actually are we transferring over? What are we sharing? What are we distributing? What's the qualities? How wholesome is it? So the whole of Dharma is a gradual process of elevating everything that you do. That's really what it is. Elevating. To what purpose? To transcendental wisdom. To prajnaparamita. And of course, a primordial awareness, or bodhicitta. So think of your dedications as, what's the purpose? What am I putting into it? What are we going to gather out of it? Yeah, because we do purposes. But we do things all day. But they may not be particularly purposeful, worthwhile, and energetic. Right? Yeah. The beautiful thing about this particular dedication, if you read it carefully, you'll see that everything in it is extraordinarily high and funnels you, directs you towards all the things for full liberation and for everybody else. And that's the beauty of it. And then the word aspiration, or monlam in Tibetan, a path of aspiration, wishes, a prayer of wishes, a resolution, a desire for the future. But the word aspiration is an English word. It comes from the 1530s. An action to breathe into, aspirate. So you see, we're always breathing into something. 20 some odd thousand times a day, we breathe in and out of something. And every breath has an investment of conceptual, emotional, thinking relationship. You never have a breath that's an innocent breath. It always contains namarupa, mind, body, like that. So how you are mentally is also the way your physiology will express. So you have the word at the action of breathing into, to breathe on, a blowing upon, a rough breathing, an influence, striving for and seeking to reach, and literally it means to breathe at or to blow upon. That's something we do all day long. So again, the question is, we make aspirations all the time, right? All day long. The question is, what kind of aspiration? Is it going anywhere? And a lot of people could say, well, I'm going somewhere. I'm going to the store. I'm going to have the aspiration to do this and that. The question is, what kind of blowing? Is it hot air? Is it cold air? Is it bodhicitta air? And so on. So we find a beautiful reference in one of the Mahayana sutras. I don't know if you have that, a commentary I wrote on the 37 Factors of Enlightenment. And in one of the very famous Mahayana suttas, it says, what do bodhisattvas do? I think the Buddha is saying, this is what bodhisattvas do. And he said, or a great bodhisattva said, a bodhisattva effortlessly, all day long, breathes in and out for the welfare of sentient beings. That's a very high aspiration. That's Tonglen. That's Lojong and Tonglen. So that's what our training is. So we keep elevating how we actually aspire all day long. So the text you'll see in the Preliminary Liberating Instructions of Bodhicitta, when we said bodhicitta, when the second last line of the 8 lines of bodhicitta, you see a statement, Osul Dorje Ningpo. That's actually what it's all about. Osul Dorje Ningpo. Luminous enlightenment heart essence. That's Dzogchen. So we want to bring everything to bear. And of course it says in mind training, to be natural. Don't be weird. Don't get weird on this. Yeah, we're already weird. We're white. What was it? White, industrialized. No, white, educated, industrialized. Are developed. Pardon? Yeah. So there's a term for us, which is we're a minority in the world, but we're a bit weird, and we're part of a cultural time that thinks that's the way it is. But so we want to take everything that we do, and this is a gradual process because it's kind of hard to do all at once, but we want to train. People say, oh, I got to train in meditation. You want me to train in meditation? No, we want you to train in aspiration to move to great perfection, or Mahamudra. Not the meditation, the realization of Mahamudra, the realization of great perfection. And that's Osul Dorje Ningpo. So that's right in the bodhicitta prayer that we do, which is we want everybody to realize Osul Dorje Ningpo. Luminously clear Vajra essence. So it is an ancient tradition to make dedication aspiration at the end of one's practice session. And I wanted to give a metaphor that is a strong enough metaphor that we all get it. Why? So what came up when I was teaching this and writing on it is as an experience I've had many times, which is the art of a business meeting, an art of a government meeting, an art of a community meeting. And you notice that when you have a meeting, and you don't decide the good things that you're going to do, you just basically lose it. Anybody administrators here?
Yeah.
Yeah? So if you don't decide what you're going to do, you don't take the positive things that you've made a decision on and review them so that everybody knows who's doing what when, you lose all the work that you did of an hour or 2 hour meeting, and you may as well have just threw it in the trash barrel. And if you're an administrator, you've known that nothing will happen unless you make those decisions, correct? That is aspiration and dedication. But in an organized way, that's actually worth doing it. So I always learned at the end of a meeting to review what everybody's decided to do, take all the good positive qualities, and actually go forward. So when we start with the preliminary liberating instructions, we are generating power and strength and capacity. So we have a business meeting, but it's not a normal business meeting. What kind of meeting is it? Well, we have a meeting with Guru Rinpoche, all the lamas of lineage, right? The Yadams, the Dharmapalas, the Dakinis, the Buddhas of the past, all the Dharma texts, all the Dharma treasures and texts, Bodhisattvas. We have the entire infinite Buddha realm of the refuge tree, and we're having a meeting. And what's the decision after the meeting with the refuge tree? We will attain all the qualities of the refuge tree. This is Vajrayana. Will attain all those qualities for the benefit of ourselves and all sentient beings. We're not just going to bow down. We're not going to just take refuge. We are going to actually attain those qualities, and that's what it's meant by becoming inseparable with all the elements in the tree. You dissolve it into. You don't just dissolve into, you go, oh, now I'm in bliss. No, you're doing this with every single sentient being, and every single sentient being is becoming all the qualities of the refuge tree. Not just freedom, but the qualities of Buddha nature, which is the form qualities. So that's the first meeting. Cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
The second meeting is the generation of bodhicitta, relative and absolute. What's your decision? All beings will get more relative happiness, but all sentient beings will attain to the great perfection. That's what we've decided to do. Why? It's their natural state. It's not something we're putting on, it's something we're seeing that is the natural state of all sentient beings. We're going to bring that out. We've made now a dedication. Then we arise and become the nature of Vajrasattva. We've made that decision, we've made that aspiration, and what's still there? The refuge tree and all this generation of bodhicitta. That's our third meeting. What's our fourth meeting? Mandala offering. We generate the refuge tree, all the source of refuge. We have every sentient being with us, and what's our commitment, our aspiration? Bring every single sentient being to a pure realm of liberation. And of course, in this tradition, there's an outer, inner, secret, and suchness level of mandala offering. That's an extraordinary meeting. So we've made a decision like that, but we're still Vajrasattva, so we've already made the decision to become the nature of Vajrasattva. Then we have Guru Yoga, because we want to discover first in ourselves that the enlightened qualities of our root teacher and all the lineage masters, in fact, is our innate quality, and bring that out, and then we can discover a Buddha nature in all sentient beings. So that's very short on Guru Yoga, but these are the kinds of meetings we're having, and then to leave it and stop at the end is a bad business meeting. It's poor administration. It's like saying, I've just had a fantastic meeting with all of you, Crystal Mountain meeting, and we're not going to review what we've done, we're not going to share it, and we're just going to forget everything that we did. That's about what it's like. So the dedication aspiration is what you do when you have a good meeting. You pull it all together, you review it, every single good quality, and you make sure it goes ahead. As Namdra Rinpoche said, if you don't use it, you lose it. So therefore, you don't develop strength, you don't develop power. And as Antre Rinpoche has said many times, you need mountains of merit to realize Mahamudra and Dzogchen. There's a what I call bogus concept floating around out there that you can jump. You can jump big time. You can really stretch out and realize Mahamudra, Buddha nature, and Dzogchen, Buddha nature, without having to do the capacity muscle building. It's pervasive out there. It's like a giant propaganda machine telling you don't need to do all this. Well, there have been great masters through the centuries who said that's nonsense. And some of them found out the hard way. I have a text upstairs that was given to me by a Kempo. It's lovely. He translated this text from the 19th century. It's a Drikung text. And this eminent Lama was told by his root guru he could go two ways. If he had the ability, because he was a great incarnate being, he could just realize by looking at mind's nature. Or he could go the other way, which is developing samatha and the preliminaries and building the capacity to do this. So which route, does it sound familiar? Which route did he take, do you think?
Easy.
The easy one, yeah? So for 5 years he tried that out, and guess what happened? He said he had to start all over again, just like a novice, start all over again and build the capacity and the strength to actually realize the Mahamudra. Well, he became the tutor. He's very famous, by the way. He became the tutor of the next holiness of the Drikung Kagyu. He was no slouch. But he said, I basically wasted 5 years. That's the 19th century. Shabkar said the same thing 250 years ago. Don't believe that stuff. I say it's nonsense. It's a direct quote. So, like anything else we do, if we don't build the capacity, we can get glimpses, we can get hints, but we actually can't shoulder the load. We can't actually sustain it. Some people can't even get a glimpse because they don't have the strength. Those in the past, perhaps, if you're very fortunate, in the past there's been lots of retreat work and Dharma in some past lives, and therefore it ripens quickly. But it usually ripens as an experience, and then it has to be built. Okay, it has to be generated, built. Okay. So it all, even though the nature of mind is not causal, the path is causal. We're causally built, and yet the ultimate nature isn't causal. That's why it's free. We still have to go and do things causally, and we do that all the time in our lives. So we need an action plan. If we don't have an action plan, nothing actually happens. I think we all know that, right? The times that we've not made an action plan, it doesn't go well, or it's haphazard. So sometimes people are like, I'll make supper. I'll say, what are you going to make? I don't know. So would you walk in, let's say, for a supper party with no plan and just kind of, maybe a really good chef could, just walk in and see what's in the refrigerator, no planning, just open the door, no planning, no forethought, a day ahead, just open it, chance maybe there's something to cook. So you need a plan. So we've had this giant Dharma feast, yes, called the Preliminary Liberating Instructions, as Jitsen Sumgon said, the founder of the Drikung Kagyu. He said, unlike some, I say to all of you that the Preliminary Liberating Instructions are the highest practice. Once you realize that, the joy that comes out of doing the Preliminary Liberating Instructions, unbelievable. Because it's like being soaked in Dzogchen and Mahamudra, just soaked. And then everything from that blossoms. So it's really important to get rid of this idea that you're running, you have to quickly get through the Preliminary Liberating Instructions, the preliminaries, to get to the really good stuff. As Pelter Rinpoche demonstrated in one of his stories, the good stuff is right there in the 4 foundations that turn the mind from samsara. You can just stop there. So it's important. It's a really important change of attitude. So the next paragraph on page 5 is an explanation of why I came to write this, and I'd like to thank Trudy Gold for helping, marvelous editor, and also Doris in Vienna for checking over my Tibetan translations. That's very good. So it has a stamp of some clarity there. This particular liberating instructions is considered a treasure revealed by Orgyen Lho Nuden Dorje in the 19th century, and I consider it a great gift. So let's start into the text on page 6 with the dedication. Namo Bhagawan Sugatas, the 10 directions, the 3 times, Gurus, Devas, and 3 jewels. Very high statement. Making Namo, which is making respects. The word Namo is also the root for our word in English to name, Sanskrit to name, to declare, to make respect, to honor. And we have to honor where we're aiming. So if we don't have a clear idea of where we're going, we could go anywhere. We get in a car and we say, well, we're going to just drive. Have you had that? Have you ever tried that? I've tried that. I'll have it for a drive. It's great. Go for a drive. Sunday afternoon drive. Saturday afternoon drive, just drive. It's lovely. But you might not go anywhere. You might drive around circles. Who knows? So here we have to state where we want to go and where every sentient being is headed. And also to pay our great respects to all the beings that are supporting us in that realization. That is the Bhagawan Sugatas, the great fully enlightened beings in the 10 directions and 3 times, and there's gurus, there's infinite devas or yidams, and 3 jewels. So contained in here is one of the most important. So you can really skip by and just read and go, okay, right, I pay homage to all these beings, but there's something slipped in here which is the heart of all Vajrayana. And this is the 10 directions. It wasn't just Namo Bhagawan Sugatas, Gurus, Devas, and 3 jewels. It's in the 10 directions and 3 times. What this means is Bhagawan Sugatas means full awakeness. So this is following in the nature of the understanding of Vajrayana. All space and time, and which is timeless, is utterly pervaded by Buddha nature. There isn't any space. So from the point of view of full realization, this room is utterly stuffed without any space left over with awakenedness, awakened beingness. But to a mind that is seeing in a sentient way, it appears that there are a collection of human beings in this room and objects and what we call space. But in fact, from the point of view of great realization, there isn't anything other than awakeness. Even space is a concept. Okay, so here we have it. That's really high. And the 3 times that we're going, well, why would I care about what's gone in the past? And why would I care about the future? Why don't I just consider the present? Have you ever found a present? And I don't mean those kinds of presents, but have you found a present? You've been told there's a present, right? Have you ever looked closely to see if you can see a present? Mm-hmm. You won't find one. And the gurus, the devas, and 3 jewels is really the core. It's a statement, a short statement of all the sources of refuge. And it says, all infinite victors, an infinite number of fully awakened beings. That's what that means. Infinite victors, fully awakened beings, as many as grains of dust in a field. You know what that means? How many? That's an expression for you will not be able to ever count how many. All of you, please listen and pay heed to me. So we're making a statement which is, we're making an aspiration to the highest sources of liberation. Listen up, folks. I have something I want to make. Statement. So the most important thing really here is you're making an honor to awakeness everywhere. You want to get used to awakeness everywhere. You may say, well, where is that awakeness? All of experience is awake. That's the key. So you look outwardly to see where the awakeness is, but you're looking at your own mind. There's no other thing that you're looking at other than your mind. And your mind isn't your mind, it's mind. And what is that mind? It's utterly awake. That means all the phenomena in your mind is utterly awake. So, and as taught in Maitreya's Uttara Tantra, so this is one of the key texts of the Vajrayana on Buddha nature. That's also the title is the Tantra of Buddha nature. Quote, the perfect Buddha's bodies are all pervading, spread throughout all phenomena. So this is called in Vajrayana the Sugata Garbha, which is an equivalent term really for Tathagata Garbha, which means the womb of great bliss, Sugata Garbha, or the potential nature for awakening. So when one, through Guru Yoga and through the Vajrayana practices and through the study of one's teacher as a physical being, one will eventually realize that all sentient beings have this potential nature. That's not just an attitude, it's a realization. All sentient beings, no matter how confused, weird, crazy they are, smart, wonderful, loving, doesn't matter, all sentient beings have this nature and they exhibit that nature. So one of the things we want to do in our practice and our understanding of Dharma is we want to come to see that every single being has this kind of potential. Otherwise we miss the point of Vajrayana. Because what we're trying to do then is fiddle with the impossible. Do you know what I mean? We're trying to invent enlightenment, and that would be impossible. We want to find the enlightenment that's already there. That's it. Because it's already there. So you see where the confidence and devotion comes from, faith? If you don't know that, it's very confusing and very disheartening because you're trying to create something. That's why I've changed the word in the preliminaries. You don't create bodhicitta, you generate bodhicitta. I know it's a subtle point, I just don't agree with that translation. Because creation, you're not creating anything. You're just generating what's already present. That's the realization. You work with what's already present instead of trying to create something new. So when we visualize in sadhanas and mandalas, remember, you've all done that. The generation of the mandala and the seed syllable and all that. It often refers to the Vajra tent or the protective enclosure. Remember all that? It says, right? The Vajra Raksha circle, that dome. Well, that dome is exactly what's being described here. That dome is a dome of Vajras, which represents enlightenment mind with no spaces. And that's what it's describing as right here, is a pervasive Buddha awareness as the protection. As it says in the text, bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta, is the protection. You don't need any other protection. You don't need to go and do weird things to hold people off, actually. All kinds of. Why? It's already free. It's already liberated. So that is a symbol for that, is a dome of dorjes, all connected, with no space the texts say no space in between, which means enlightenment and liberation is pervasively self-existing. We just generate it as an exercise to realize it. It's already existing. So we are imploring. So let's go back. So I've said here it pervades space without any gaps in the 10 directions, thus the word Rabjam. You've seen that before in your Dzogchen teachings. It means infinite. Rabjam, infinite. An instruction to contemplate the infinite scope of refuge and blessings. So we're imploring the victors, the fully awakened beings that pervade space, which is our own mind's nature, to listen and pay heed to what we have to say. We're making a heartfelt request. And if you have questions while we're going through this, you can let me know. On page 7, from now on, as much virtue as the virtuous actions performed by mind, others' body, speech, and mind, equal to space, accumulated throughout the 3 times. Here's another one that is often skipped by and misunderstood because people keep asking me about it or indicating they don't understand it, is when it says equal to space, it means the number, it's short for the number of sentient beings that are equivalent to how vast space is. So what is that number? Infinite. Absolutely inconceivably infinite. That's what it means. So from now on, as much virtue as the virtuous actions. How much virtue is out there? So this is a very big topic. How much virtue have you done today? You may say, well, very little, really, maybe. But actually, most interaction by a human being or other sentient creatures has done what today? It's supported people. So you're all very virtuous. Most people are pretty virtuous, but they're not very, very virtuous. So social creatures, whether it's a bacteria, which are very social creatures, a fish, which are very social creatures, dogs, and so on. Many sentient beings, trees, fungus, very, very social. They're actually more than they're fighting and trying to outcompete each other. Yeah, occasionally, are very virtuous and supportive. But not necessarily virtue for liberation, but they're virtuous. So what we're doing, accumulated through the 3 times, we want to contemplate what we're resting on. That's important. So a lot of people think they're resting on themselves. They're not resting on themselves. They're resting on infinite sentient beings that mostly do positive things. If they didn't do positive things, you wouldn't actually see this. So for all the complaining about governments, go work for government. You'll see. Anybody ever work for, who's here's worked for government? Did you spend your days doing bad things?
No.
What did you mostly do?
Try to make things better.
Try to make things better. And actually that's mostly what goes on with a few people that are trying not to make things go better but actually most of it is actually pretty good, wherever you look. So you have to consider what's supporting this awakeness and the growth of sentient beings is all this virtuous quality. And it's important not to always be dwelling on the negative actions of sentient beings, but to actually have the insight to see their positive qualities and work with those and know you're resting on that. So the text is asking us to reflect on the inconceivably enormous accumulation of wholesome and sublime activities of body, speech, and mind that are of vast space, as there are infinite number of sentient beings, there's also an infinite amount of virtue. Okay, so I've said here to reflect on that. None of us would be here today unless there was actually a pretty decent level of virtue. I would say that a good number of people in this room would not be alive without the medicines and research that have been developed. Yep. I can look around the room and say, yep, that's for sure. And education. You've had education like very few people ever have had in the world. And a Dharma education. It's extraordinary. Not just from this being, but other people. Opportunities. Yeah. These trees right now, would you say they're virtuous? They might not have the intent like us, but without these trees and the algae, we'd be dead. It's quite something. So I made a list here to reflect on. All the beings worth doing. And if you would like to try an experiment, meditative experiment, contemplation today, is just take a piece of paper and list all the humans, non-humans that have allowed you to be here right now and function. Not just your parents. Start with your parents and go outwards and consider all the trees, all the creatures, the administrators that you don't even know, the people that lay down good roads, the engineers, the secretaries, and so on and so on and so on, your friends that are incredibly supportive. That yes, they do dumb things from time to time, and they do really nasty things from time to time, but most of it's pretty good supportive activity. And that's really important, that you actually rest in that. You know that. It supports you. And it's not you. So who are you? All those beings. That's the fact. So we normally go, my problem, my virtue. Forget it. Wrong view. And that doesn't include the 100 million microbes that are living in you and keeping you alive. So it goes, we'll see, it gets, I spent pages on it. Actually, I was suggested by the editor to put that in the appendix, because I went on for pages as a study of starting to go, okay, so how many are there? And the numbers just got bigger and bigger. So this word virtue, which is bandied about, which in Pali is sila, and Sanskrit is shila, and Tibetan is sultram, ethical conduct, moral wholesome activity, altruism, goes anywhere from doing positive things, yeah, to incredibly positive, wholesome, liberated activity. And then the next line says, the myriad expressions of ethical conduct are the cornerstones upon which the entire Noble Eightfold Path and all Dharma activities and meditation are built. So if you were to say, if someone was to ask you what you do at Crystal Mountain, you say, I meditate, you would be incorrect. Because meditation is only part of what we do. It may be even more truthful to say, I train in sila. Because if you train in sila, meditation actually really happens pretty quickly because you don't have the turbulence. So here I've introduced, which I'm sure you've heard before, the 3 higher trainings, which go through all the Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, is a training in ethics, sila, the mental. We should get rid of mental concentration. That'd be great. Let's see the end of that phrase, that mental concentration. Let's get rid of it. Samadhi. Just let's get rid of it. Okay, samadhi. There's good reasons to get rid of it. Let's say mental unity would be better. Samadhi, right? Complete unity. D, sharpness of focus, sharpness of alertness. Be great. And then number 3, wisdom. These are called the 3 higher trainings. This is what we engage in. So someone said to you, I like to do this as an exercise. Someone says to you, walks up to you, because people ask me, what do I say to people? What do I tell them I do? I don't know what to say. You say, because so when you finish a Dzogchen retreat or something, you say, Dzogchen. But what is that? Okay, so if someone asked you on the streets of Galliano, maybe on Divina Drive, and say, what are you doing up there? You say, the 3 higher trainings. Oh, so you meditate. No, the 3 higher trainings. They say, well, you meditate. No, samadhi. Dhyana, samadhi. So I put in here a quote from the Theravadan Suttas. It follows the rewards of virtue. Ananda is asking the Buddha, what, O Venerable One, is the reward and blessing of wholesome morality, of sila? The Buddha says, freedom from remorse, Ananda. Can you sleep at night without any concerns of what you did during the day? Really? Can you wake up and have no remorse, no guilt, no shame, no remorse, and go, wow, this is what you want to get to? And freedom from remorse, joy, Ananda. What joy? So we're going, where can I find joy? Virtue. So if I meditate, will I find joy? No, actually. Because you're trying to produce joy when in fact joy will happen naturally when there's no remorse. You have to read the text really clearly. And of joy, rapture, Ananda. Piti. And of rapture, tranquility, Ananda. So when you're really full of piti, your body is energetic, it feels alive, you have no mental remorse, you feel no shame for, guess what happens? Your mind rests in this incredible tranquility. Happiness, Ananda. And of happiness, concentration, Ananda, or samadhi. And of concentration, insight, vision and knowledge according to reality. And the vision and knowledge according to reality, turning away and detachment of it. That means moving away from wandering in samsara. And turning away in detachment, the vision and knowledge with regards to deliverance, to liberation, Ananda. So you see the whole path is based on virtue. So people are trying to meditate like trying to go through a brick wall with their heads. But if they could actually recraft what they do in life, think, their body, their speech, and their mind, then they would have more periods of just sitting down and all the factors would be there. Question is, do you believe that? I would. I really would. So I can make a political comment, which is an entire movement to train people to meditate, which is lovely, trying to overcome the foundation of the spiritual life, which is not being established, and trying to believe that the technique, which comes second, doesn't have to rest on anything else. What is strange with that story? And go into environments, corporate, government, life environments that shake that all up. Maybe we need to rethink that a little bit. Maybe if we rethought that, there'd be less need to meditate and more emphasis on virtue and ethics. So this boundless virtue we are dedicating is an inconceivable but essential consideration and vision of stainless conduct. We want to take conduct, ethics, and move it to a level that is so refined and so lovely that our minds can then gain the vision and knowledge, as the Buddha says, the vision and knowledge according to reality and deliverance. So it's good to try to visualize and maybe contemplate the number of sentient beings. This is actually in the text. The really ancient texts have these, and they come up, of course, with as numerous as space is vast. So you think, well, that's impossible to do, but it's actually not impossible to do. It will become non-conceptual, but let's go through some of it. And we can do it by summarizing how many sentient beings out there and how much virtue there actually is. So just alone on this planet, if we took all the animals, zebras, chickens, whales, and insects, humans too, if we took all the animals on this planet, we would have somewhere in the order of 20 billion. It's a very large number. That's 20 to the 18th power. Most human beings, I don't think, can really imagine what that's like. But if you want to get an idea of what that's like, you take a tablespoon of soil outside and you consider it has 1 to 2 billion microbes. That gives you an idea. And you multiply that by 20 billion times, and you get a very large number. Now, those are all the visible creatures. 99% of all sentient life, more than 99, are invisible to the human eye. That's a fact. Okay? So, do you have any idea how many sentient beings there are on this planet? And one estimate is there's more sentient beings under the earth, below the surface, than there are actually on top. And no one has really known, because they're just getting the first numbers of creatures that are in the cracks in the soil and the earth going down 2 or 3 or 4 kilometers. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody really knows how many non-human creatures are in a human being. The estimates go anywhere from 5% human to over 60%. It goes back and forth depending on who does the counting and the research. So human beings are a very, very small percentage of all life. I would suggest it's really worth studying what life does to see what supports all this and help it along. Then I put a paragraph about what constitutes sentience. Be very careful when we constitute sentience. Other creatures can actually think and feel differently than us and still be sentient. And it was lovely one day, I think I told you, maybe some of you, but one day I think I was sitting here and I got a phone call from India. And someone had attended, maybe it was 6 or 7 years ago, someone was attending a talk by the 17th Karmapa. And right after they sent me a message or phoned me, I think, and said, I just want to tell you what he just said. He said, all sentient life is sentient. It has to be changed. This idea that it's only this and this and this creatures must be changed. It's all of sentient life. All beings are sentient. So, and always remember too that the old view that creatures are fighting, what's it called? Tooth and nail? Blood, tooth and blood? Something like that. They're out to get each other. You know, all the people in this room are out to compete each other. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that? They're out to fight each other off. Who's going to get to enlightenment first? I've watched that, you know. It's amazing. I'm just joking. But that view that nature is all about competition is mostly wrong. Most creatures are socially supporting each other. Occasionally get out and knock each other off. But for the most part, sentient beings are very, very social and supportive of each other. And then the Buddha said in regards to recalling our own virtues, which is what? Recalling our own virtues? This gets forgotten. 40 classic meditations of the Theravadan tradition, which has permeated Southeast Asia. Which is the one that most people emphasize and practice? Breathing meditation and loving kindness. There's 38 others. This is one of them. Recalling the recollection, or the sati, the recollection of one's own virtues. So he said in another sutta, furthermore, there is the case where you recollect your own virtues. They are untorn, unbroken, unspotted, unsplattered. It's not lovely, eh? Lovely translation. Liberating, praised by the wise, untarnished, conducive to concentration. You see, there it is again. When the virtue is high, then you automatically have concentrated states. At any time when a disciple of the Noble Ones is recollecting virtue, or the meditation called the Recollection of Virtue, his mind is not overcome with passion, not overcome with aversion, not overcome with delusion. That is greed, hatred, delusion. His mind heads straight based on virtue. So that's one of the qualities of virtue, is you go straight and you don't go wandering all over the place when you have good virtue, good ethics. And when the mind is headed straight, the disciple of the Noble Ones gains a sense of the goal, that is the view, the vision, gains a sense of the Dharma, gains joy, connect with the Dharma. In one who is joyful, rapture arises. One who is rapturous, the body grows calm. One whose body is calmed experiences ease. In one at ease, the mind becomes concentrated. So that's actually the path. So unfortunately what happened, which I've mentioned many times, is in the introduction to Dharma in the West, meditation got introduced first. It's not actually classically how it's done, and there's a reason for that, is trying to develop so-called concentrated meditative states really can't be done very successfully at all. Demonic concentrated states, murderous concentrated states. As one commentator said, Western commentator, I forget who, he said, a sniper, an assassin sniper, has excellent mindfulness and attention. To be a really good rifle, to get your NRA, high levels on the NRA, me, as a teenager, really high, you have to have really good breath concentration and mindfulness. But you also could be shooting targets all day or shooting people all day. So it's virtue that supports it all. Better to focus on virtue, really high quality of virtue, and develop that, and you'll find that the meditation will just be absolutely natural. The above quote shows a profound insight into why the dedication to ethics and activity that is stainless is a swift way to unfold all the qualities one needs for liberation. And that's why Sila comes first in the list of the 3 higher trainings. So the ability to develop and sustain a wholesome and sublime meditative state falls apart without the cultivation of superb ethics and virtue. This is very hard to teach unless you have a teacher. It's going to be really difficult unless you have examples around you that support you, help you, correct you. As the Buddha said, if you find someone that criticizes you, follow them. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
You think if the Buddha said, if you find someone who loves you and is really kind to you, follow them. No, he said, if you find someone who criticizes you, follow them. Because you have to have strong enough being to let you know what constitutes that which is wholesome and that which is unwholesome. It's very easy in a book. Isn't it really easy in a book or a podcast or a video to go, oh yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty enlightened. Isn't it easy to, when a person's talking in you're reading in a book and go, yeah, I got those stages of insight. Yeah, I got a lot of loving kindness. It's pretty easy, isn't it? But when you're in front of somebody else and you're in a group and you're actually acting, you're actually engaged. Have you noticed how often who you think you are and what you've got doesn't quite match what's really happening? Have you found that? And then suddenly you come up against something that says, maybe I'm not the way I think I am. So we still need human beings. We aren't going to dispense with human beings right away. There are very valuable teachers. So how many of you in the room fly in airplanes?
Fly?
Fly in airplanes.
Fly in?
In airplanes, yeah. Would you like it if, for instance, due to budget cuts and financial cuts, that the inspectors stopped inspecting planes? Let's see a show of hands, yes or no? Let's say a show of hands. Would you like the inspectors to stop inspecting planes? No.
That's kind of happened.
Okay, but let's say, let's just going to go through this process. It's called virtue. Would you like the mechanics who check the planes and service the planes to be unconcentrated and distracted? Let's, yes, no, okay, yeah, no. Okay, you really like them to be on, right?
Yeah.
And would you like them to be in good states?
Yes.
Ethically honest, clear, mindful, attentive, and good in all their qualities. Would you like that? Is that a yes? A yes? Yeah, I'd say yes. No? Anybody? No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is this pretty clear? So why would we expect otherwise for the finest human qualities for liberation? No, so we want the same thing. We need the same quality. So we've noticed that when the flight updates, the inspections, the maintenance, perhaps the design of the plane, they skipped a few things hoping to get it on the market, has led to problems. The same thing happens with Sila. So people ask me, really heartfelt, why when I meditate an hour a day or I do a short retreat, how come it didn't work for me? How come it didn't deliver the goods? Get this all the time. Because it's not resting on anything. It's not resting on anything. They say, well, what should it rest on? It has to rest on virtue. Now you're into a major study and practice. That's called the 37 Factors of Enlightenment. So the 37 Factors of Enlightenment is like all the checklists, maintenance, inspections, right, of an airline to make sure the airline gets up in the air. And, by the way, here's another one they have to check. It doesn't run out of fuel. It's done by weight. Okay? So, make sure one doesn't run out of fuel for the spiritual path. Yeah. Okay. And then it says, and the stainless virtue existing from the beginning. So this is what I talked about this morning, and we'll pause there for a bit. So there has been a lot of virtue generated for countless periods of time in sentient beings, but there's also been the generation of difficulties in habit patterns. So this reference to the stainless virtue existing in the being is a reference to this amala vijnana, the stainless alaya consciousness. That's what it refers to. Or primordial awareness, yeshe in Tibetan, or jnana in Sanskrit. So normally the eighth consciousness in the scheme of the different consciousnesses, the alaya vijnana, contains a storehouse of seeds of habit patterns. But actually, when we were looking for the ground of that, which is called the amala vijnana on page 10, or the stainless consciousness, and this is one's inherent pure awareness. So that really is the virtue that exists from the very beginning, is actually the nature of awareness, not awareness, the nature of awareness. You're not looking for awareness. What happens when you look for awareness? If you look at awareness, what do you get? Your awareness. You get the habit patterns of awareness. What are you really looking for? The stainless awareness. You keep remembering that all meditation is looking to glimpse, discover, and develop confidence in stainless awareness, primordial awareness, then you're on the right track. As soon as you start to contemplate and get fascinated or entertained by your states, you will have more of your states. It's called meditation.
Yeah.
But I'm meditating on my mind. Oh, I'm sorry. But I'm watching my states come and go. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Why would you want to? I'm watching my bodily sensations come and go. Why? Oh, but I thought that's what you're supposed to do. Maybe for a while, but someone should tell you that if you keep doing that, what will you get? More of your conditioned states coming and going. That's not what Dharma's on about. Says in the Sutra of the Great Bounteousness of the Buddhas, deeply involved in the vehicle of pristine cognition, and the greater vehicle, the mind, dedicates the merit of those fundamental virtues. So be careful. It's really important to know the power of virtue and the power of stainless virtue before you come to statements in Ati Yoga or Dzogchen of statements like the following, which you may read. Their virtue is empty and non-virtue too is empty. Virtue is void, sounds like the Heart Sutra. Virtue is void and non-virtue too is void. Virtue is unadulterated by non-virtue and non-virtue too is unadulterated by virtue. There is neither basis nor cause for hankering after virtue and non-virtue. So if you make the jump to statements like that and contemplations like that, you're really in trouble. You may be able to meditate a bit, but you won't be able to tie your shoelaces. And you'll trip over your shoelaces. Yeah. You know what I mean by that. The metaphor of tripping over your excellent meditator, residing in neither virtue nor non-virtue, and then when you get up to walk, you immediately trip over your shoelaces. Yeah.
Because you're out of touch with the relative.
You're out of touch with the relative, with a phenomenal relative. Yeah. Which probably means you're out of touch with the non-relative too. Likely. A space case does not denote a good practitioner. A space case. Yes.
I wonder if you were saying awareness, you don't look at your awareness because you'll go back to your habits of what you've noticed, maybe. But the Buddhas, the 5 Buddhas, would those be qualities of what is the nature of pristine awakeness?
Yes. So when we practice in Vajrayana, all of our practices are centered around the 5 pristine Buddha wisdoms, not the conditioned nature of ourselves. So it's quick. If we look at the 5, I arranged these today like this. If we look at the 5, wisdom Buddhas, if we look at our own conditioned awareness, we have the 5 skandhas. We have the 5 skandhas of our experience, our body, our volitional formations, our perception, so on. The whole base of Vajrayana is we don't do that because it's not the ground. We want to look at the ground. The ground is actually the 5 pristine awarenesses of the 5 Buddha wisdoms. By the way, some of you, not so many of you in the room now, but some of you have had a hard time with this. Is that correct? Is that right? Yes. People tell me, you know, Lama, I've been off studying other things for a while because I find this very difficult to understand. That's true. I go, that's correct. So yes, one has to do this. This takes a real incredible understanding. If we want freedom from our conditioned states, we have to meditate on something other than our conditioned states. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And what most of the time we're doing is we're telling stories about our conditioned states, hoping for a miraculous mystical outcome, which is outside of our conditioning. Yes, it's going to happen occasionally, but if we don't have the training and the teachers to find that for us and use that, it's going to be missed. Of course it's going to happen occasionally. Buddha wisdom is very powerful, so it throws us up a bone. You know what I mean by bone? Every once in a while, like a dog's bone. Wow, look at this one. Woo! Oops. Whoa, look. Right?
Okay.
Here, you want another one? You're meditating once a year. And you go, whoa, that's incredible. You don't even know what it is. And it falls away and gets subsumed. Because what you're doing is you've been trained to look at your stuff, right? But all of Vajrayana is starting with the fruition as the path, which is you're meditating as a fully enlightened being, extracting that essence as your practice. You see? And it takes maturity to do that. So yes, traditionally you went through the Hinayana practices, the Mahayana practices, you went into relative and absolute bodhicitta, Lojong and Tonglen, and then you come to the generation completion stage, the Preliminary Liberating Instructions, which has a very different view. You already are Buddha nature, so you may as well just do those practices that are Buddha nature. Do you see? That's the entire premise of the Preliminary Liberating Instructions. You're already Vajrasattva. You turn into Vajrasattva right at the beginning. And after that, you never come out of Vajrasattva. That's how it is. Why? It holds you in a commitment, which is you already are Buddha nature. Why would you now want to not be that? That's called the fast path. But it takes a maturity of view. So it may be that someone hears that and they go, oh, that's true. I've heard this from people. Oh, that's true. Absolutely true. I know that. I'm not going to do that now. People, really bright people say, I'm not doing that. I know you're absolutely right. I know the teaching's exactly right, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go off for about 10 or 15 years doing all kinds of other things. And that may be what they have to do to eventually come back to say, this is what I actually want to come to. So normally speaking, the teaching was taught in 3 cycles: Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana. And you progress gradually through all those cycles. But people can't do that today because you meet teachers at whatever place they're teaching. Whether it's the Kala Chakra initiation, right? 300,000 people going to a Kala Chakra initiation. Whether you walk into a teaching on Dzogchen, maybe the 3 statements of Lho Nuden Dorje, and you're in Toronto or Vancouver, and you go, great, that sounds good. It says Dzogchen Guru Yoga or something like that. And you walk in and you think, I'm going to go to a yoga class. That happened in New Zealand. Some ladies saw Namgyal Guru Yoga posted, and they thought they were going to a yoga class. And it was after the empowerment, it was for the reading, transmission, the practice. And they walked in, and their eyes were like this. So I walked right over them before I gave class and said, settle down, relax. You may get to hear something you've never, ever heard before. We thought we were coming to a yoga class. You are. This is a yoga class. Relax, enjoy, have a good time, and just let it go through. They had a good time. They really, especially one of them went, that was something I've never heard before. They were really, really, really profound for them. That's yoga. But that doesn't mean that they can hold that experience. So that person then may have to do somatic work and breathing and practice loving kindness and compassion and maybe do some psychotherapy, all kinds of things for years before they ever get back into that environment and go, yeah, I'm ready to hear this. And it's usually not even a decision like that. So we enter the path wherever we enter the path. But in ancient days, you went to your teacher and they sent you to Lama so-and-so or this teacher, and they said started with the Hinayana, and they started over a 20-year period to build all the skills and foundations for the first time in your life after 10 or 15 years, you're introduced to Mahamudra. That's the old way. Now we introduce Mahamudra Dzogchen right at the very beginning because Westerners can understand it. But it doesn't mean they can actually practice it. The only hope is they have their wisdom nature takes them on a path that leads them to eventually practice it. That's really what we're doing. So then I've said here, ultimately both virtue, or whoever this guy that wrote this is, Ultimately, virtue and non-virtue are simply phenomena, void of any characteristics other than what a conceptual mind, dwelling in subject-object duality, make of the experience. Thus, we keep to excellent virtue for the great benefit of many. Even if we don't need to, we must. Apparent beings need apparent causes, because we're still subject to causality. So that statement in here is really important. What we're resting on is stainless virtue, just covered over by habit patterns. That's the important part. So whenever you feel weird, whenever you feel discombobulated, you know that word? Discombobulated? Discombobulated? No? Oh, no. Oh, okay. Discombobulated. Disenfranchised? No. Odd behavior, odd things happening, it doesn't feel comfortable. Just realize it's just like the clouds over the stainless virtue, just covering, just like the waves on the ocean. We get involved in the waves and we don't actually remember what the ocean's really like, that's all. But if the ocean's never pointed, so what happens if the ocean, the quality of the stainless, pristine nature of the ocean is never pointed out to us? What do? We battle with the waves. Some days the waves are calm, some days the waves are high, some meditations the waves are very calm, some hours it's very low, right? We battle with those, but we don't actually have the view that the entire underpinning of our mind is stainless. That's the Mahayana Vajrayana view. If you don't have that, oh boy, can it take a long time. You're always trying to do something with the waves. And if you're a scuba diver, how many people scuba dive here? What do all guides and instructors tell you to do when the waves are rough on the ocean?
Go down.
Stick the regulator in your mouth and get down below the surface, because it's completely different down there. How much is the surface?
Right.
How big is the ocean? It's vast. So when you're on the surface, what's the experience? Oh my God, it's really busy, it's rough. How am I ever gonna just get down? Just go into the ocean. Vajrayana is starting with the ocean. And it recognizes that the waves on the ocean are the ocean, which is another step. Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break and we'll come back and continue.